Hey everyone, and welcome to Mini Scroll, the daily internet culture podcast bringing you the biggest stories from social media, the creator economy, and the digital space every Monday through Thursday and sometimes Fridays. My name is Annabelle, and I am your Wednesday Mini Tech Scroll host, and also the deputy editor of the youth digital media brand Centennial World. Welcome back to Mini Tech Scroll. Before we get into the stories today, I just wanted to let you know if you are watching this on the day it is being uploaded, this is actually being pre-recorded. I recorded it yesterday for you, so Tuesday, the 25th of November. And that is because Lauren and I have a pretty big day tomorrow, or today, if you're watching this on Wednesday. We are actually doing red carpet coverage. So we thought it would be best for me to pre-record so we could just focus on that tomorrow. I'm sure Lauren will speak about it more on Thursday if you guys are interested, and also you could probably see it on our socials, maybe. I don't tend to post a lot on my Instagram, which is something that Lauren tries to encourage me to do, but who knows, maybe we'll be posting. And before we get into the stories, I also wanted to add that we actually have our last female founder interview as part of our campaign with Blackbird for Mini Tech Scroll at the end of today's episode, so definitely stay tuned for that. I think it is a really interesting interview. Other than all that, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe, and star rate us on Spotify. We also have a Buy Me a Coffee link in our description if you are so inclined. But let's get into the stories. The first story I wanted to talk about today is actually one that's been swirling around tech journalist circles this week, but this is basically how users have noticed that various political accounts on X have been astroturfing. So astroturfing, if you are unfamiliar with it, is essentially a deceptive marketing/PR tactic that is about creating the appearance of widespread grassroots support for a person, product, or movement when such support may not actually exist. And the conversation around all of this actually started on X when the platform introduced a feature that showed users where various accounts are based. And this update was actually announced at the end of last week. Quote, "In a couple of hours, we'll be rolling out about this account globally, allowing you to see the country or region where an account is based. This will be accessible by tapping the sign up date on profiles. This is an important first step to securing the integrity of the global town square. We plan to provide many more ways for users to verify the authenticity of the content they see on X." So I definitely can see the merit of a feature like this. I think it can be valuable on an app like X, because ever since obviously Elon Musk took over and it became X, so much of it has been completely delegitimized. Like, you can just think of verification as one example. So in theory, I think having more context about where a poster is posting from can be valuable, simply to understand more maybe about their socio-political context. Of course, I do think there are privacy concerns. I think a lot of people enjoy platforms like X and Reddit for the anonymity it can give them. But from a consumer perspective, I can definitely see the value of an update like this. After the feature dropped, internet sleuths started checking various famous Twitter accounts to see where the user's country of origin was. And many journalist publications and social media users have had a particular focus on MAGA accounts, finding out that many of the most popular pro-Trump MAGA profiles are actually not based in the United States. In a piece for the Garbage Day newsletter, Ryan Broderick went through some of the most popular accounts and where they're based. So I'll read out the examples he gives now. Quote, "A network of fan accounts for Trump's family members, including at Eric Trump Fan 1, at Baron T News _, and at Trump Kai News, are all run out of Macedonia, known for its extensive troll farms targeting American right-wingers. An account called at Emma _brunette 95, which describes itself as an American patriot and relationship coach, has over 600,000 followers, is based in West Asia." And while these MAGA accounts are definitely the ones that have been making the most noise online, or at least the most headlines in various publications, I will say I have seen examples across the political spectrum where accounts promoting issues or ideology or messaging associated with one side of the political spectrum are not in the expected country of origin. I've seen examples on the right, which are these MAGA accounts, as well as on the left. And I just thought that was worth flagging before we continue. Anyway, the MAGA accounts specifically have prompted significant discourse across social media. For example, there has been some claims among more left-leaning American users that the prominence of international-based MAGA accounts affirm that certain foreign actors might be trying to manipulate American voters. And sure, there can be truth to this, but I'm not sure if this is the whole story. In the same piece for Garbage Day, Ryan Broderick held a similar sentiment. He noted that rather than foreign actors influencing domestic politics, it goes to show how the Republican Party in the US have become so reliant on X for policy and messaging, where they can't operate without it. As he writes, quote, "They use X to coordinate propaganda, create policy, and as a jobs board for Trump's second administration, using its likes and shares in the place of actual leadership. And now we know that a staggering amount of the accounts Republicans have been relying on for viral feedback are either apolitical con artists milking their hatred for clicks or pitiful anonymous fascists LARPing America's culture war because they can't wage one at home. It's proof that the American right has spent the better part of the last decade letting algorithmic spam tell them what they want to hear, astroturfing themselves into believing that some silent majority out there believes in their worthless MAGA crusade." Interestingly, this has all come about in the same week that the Pew Research Center published a report documenting US social media habits, and X has actually managed to hold on, even though the platform, like we've spoken about repeatedly at this point, has declined drastically in quality and reliability over the past few years. According to the data, 21% of American adults say they use X, and while this also may be on the lower end compared to other social media platforms, X turned out to be more popular than its competitors in Threads, Blue Sky, and even Truth Social. But yes, I am very curious to hear what you guys think about this story, especially if you are based in the US. What was interesting to me, though, as someone who obviously lives outside the US, is how surprised many American journalists and users seem to be by the amount of MAGA accounts outside the US. This was not a shock to me at all. MAGA has really moved beyond being a domestic political movement to an internationally impactful cultural one. And I'm thinking of Australia as an example here because obviously that is where we're based and we have a lot of Aussie listeners, so I feel like it's valid. But we have definitely been seeing the creeping Americanization of Australia for quite a while now. An increasing portion of Australia's media, public figures, and politicians are very Trumpy, choosing to essentially import the culture war and various US political issues to Australia. I feel like abortion, immigration, and increasing tendencies of conspiratorial thinking are particularly salient examples here. Granted, I will say I do think Australia would be particularly influenced by the US for a multitude of reasons. Obviously, we're both English-speaking nations and long-term allies, but there is definitely a cohort of Australian public figures who embrace MAGA, so it's not surprising to me to see that extended in other places like social media. Although I can definitely understand why it's unsettling for these MAGA accounts to quote unquote blindly support the movement across the world, because the people running these accounts wouldn't be the ones who have to directly deal with the fallout of various policies and the changes that would be impacting Americans in their daily life. And seeing these accounts kind of legitimize it, and in turn politicians taking it as American public opinion and validation, is definitely a cause for concern. But yeah, I feel like I went on a bit of a ramble there. Definitely share your thoughts though. Is this something that surprised you? Is this something you expected? How do you feel about it? Yeah, I'm curious. Speaking of Australia, tech, and politics, this actually brings us to our next story, and I wanted to give a little bit of an update on the under-16s social ban here in Australia. We've been talking about this a lot. It's probably this and the TikTok ban in the US that have become some of our most frequently mentioned topics, or consistently mentioned topics, I guess. But we are getting close to when the ban comes into effect here in Australia, so I would expect more updates coming from me, whether you like it or not. If you aren't in Australia or not familiar with the ban, I will take another moment to explain, even though I have done this multiple times, but we got to get the basics down. last year, legislation passed through Parliament that would essentially set a minimum age for social media. From when it passed, which was the end of last year, social media platforms have had essentially 12 months to roll out systems to be able to enforce the age restrictions. And since then, the various updates that have come out and analysis by this move by the government has been continuously debated, especially around how it would be possible to institute the ban and which platforms will be included. And I have reported previously on the discourse around the platforms that could be included. One of the big stories that emerged earlier this year was about YouTube and how, even though it was initially exempt from the ban, it is now included. At this point in time, though, it is looking like under 16s will be able to go on YouTube without an account once the ban has been instituted, which I fear might make certain inappropriate content more accessible, especially the fact that teen users also won't be allowed to report content because they won't have an account to report it from. But aside from YouTube, another controversial decision was that 4chan has seemingly managed to escape the ban, which I have reported on in a previous episode of Mini Tech. But yes, that brings us to our update for today. And the latest update is that Twitch is the next platform to be included in the ban. As a statement from Australia's e-safety commissioner reads, quote, "We've informed Twitch that we consider it an age-restricted social media platform in accordance with Australia's social media minimum age legislation. Following its own self-assessment, we assess Twitch as meeting the criteria for an age-restricted social media platform. This is because it has a sole or significant purpose of online social interaction with features designed to encourage user interaction, including through live streaming content. From December 10, age-restricted social media platforms will be required to take reasonable steps to prevent under 16s from having accounts on their platform." Obviously, this is really the 11th hour to be including another platform in the ban, and also it has been reported that this list of social media platforms that will be banned for under 16s actually remains quote-unquote dynamic, so I presume other platforms will be added down the line. But I do think the inclusion of Twitch might pose questions around Discord, even though it is primarily a messaging app, but the two are fairly intertwined, so I'm curious what will happen with that. Twitch is complying with the decision, with the ABC reporting that, quote, "A Twitch spokesperson said no underage users would be permitted to sign up for a Twitch account as of December 10, and any Australian users under 16 would have their accounts deactivated in the months afterwards." Aside from Twitch, there's also been updates about Pinterest. It has been revealed that Pinterest would actually be excluded from the ban because it is, quote, "more commonly used by individuals collating images for inspiration and idea curation." I have seen some commentators talk about how this is interesting because Pinterest is increasingly become overrun by AI and also may negatively affect body image of young girls specifically, so it still has the potential to be harmful. I definitely think it's interesting to see what platforms are being included in the ban and which ones aren't. Many pundits have noted that it seems somewhat inconsistent and a little bit arbitrary, and even though more have recently been added, there are so many questions around how the ban will actually work. So I'm very much keeping an eye on this. I will keep you updated. In a similar vein, also speaking about young kids on social media, the last story I have today is about this interview with the Roblox CEO, David Baszucki, that has been circulating. So basically, David appeared on the Hard Fork podcast by the New York Times, where the conversation has been described as quote-unquote tense by the publication and many others. So I thought I would give a quick highlight of what people are talking about. So David Baszucki was brought in to discuss the new age gating policy that Roblox is rolling out, which is basically Face ID age checks for Roblox users. As the announcement on the website reads, quote, "Roblox is the first online gaming or communication platform to require facial age checks to access chat, establishing what we believe will become a new industry standard. This innovation supports age-based chat and limits communication between minors and adults." Obviously, there are many questions around how accurate the Face ID scan will be, but at this point it's obviously difficult to tell. But let's go back to the interview. So the conversation went through kind of what prompted Roblox to institute this policy, as well as explaining how the update will work. And through the conversation, David Baszucki clarifies that the face scans will be only one of many ways essentially to verify ages. So it will be complemented with a variety of other tools. And of course, we know that safety measures are extremely necessary on Roblox, with many lawsuits leveled against the platform about predators influencing children in one way or another. This is something we have talked about at length here before. But I saw when I was researching this episode that according to Futurism, there are, quote, 20 federal lawsuits against the company bringing children's safety on the platform to national attention. So this is definitely an extremely important conversation to be having. But there were a couple of points in this interview that did not land well with social media users. The first was when the host, Casey Newton, asked, quote, "How do you think of the problem of predators on Roblox?" To which David said, as an opportunity, quote unquote, in the way that Roblox is having the ability to shape safe communication online.
I think we should start by just talking about the scope of the problem here. What has led you to this point, and how do you think of the problem of predators on Roblox?
We think of it not necessarily just as a problem, but an opportunity as well. How do we allow young people to build, communicate, and hang out together? How do we build the future of communication at the same time? So we've been, I think, in a good way working on this ever since we started.
Many social media users, though, felt like this wording was rather insensitive and kind of undermining the extent of the problem. And this was kind of a theme that went on throughout the interview, or at least how people perceived it. For example, the interviewer later noted a major problem with how Roblox essentially allow children to meet predators where they can then move to another platform, and that is where dangerous conversations can really take place. This has been an issue that has been discussed extensively in media, and while David Baszucki acknowledged it, he also categorically denied it. And this sentiment kind of intensified when the conversation turned towards talking around big tech platforms' growth versus safety. And this is the point that many people have brought up. Essentially, the host of the podcast ended up bringing up a report arguing that Roblox was compromising child safety in order to report growth to its investors, to which David Baszucki ended up responding, quote, "Fun, let's keep going down this," where he then went on to ask the journalist whether he'd done his own research on the topic, which is, I feel, extremely disrespectful, because obviously the journalist had done work previously on this. But in an attempt to kind of explain Roblox's position, he kind of spoke about how a dip in safety spending might be linked to the adoption of AI systems that can do the work for them.
Last year, activist fund and short seller Hindenburg Research came out with a report arguing, among other things, that Roblox was, quote, compromising child safety in order to report growth to investors. One of the things they pointed to was that there had been a decline in your spending on trust and safety. You have denied that. Why? What did they have wrong?
So fun. Let's keep going down this. And so first off, Hindenburg's no longer in existence, correct? So you should report on that. They went out of business for some reason. The other thing is, have you researched that information? Because you're asking me about this. I'm curious if you've done your own research.
I have done some research about.
And what's your take on that?
I'm asking you.
Many listeners and social media users kind of saw this approach as extremely defensive. And like I said, it hasn't landed well. It has also left many social media users questioning how Roblox talks about and treats child safety internally, whether they actually see it as an issue that they are contributing to, or it is just something that is native to the internet. Of course, this is in the broader context of various lawsuits that have been leveled towards the company, as I've already mentioned, but also the fact that David Baszucki has been fairly vocal about how he wants to introduce dating into Roblox down the line. I will say, though, I've also seen some people kind of be empathetic to David Baszucki, saying that no kind of sane person would be wanting to allow this on their platform. So they were like, I can kind of see where he's coming from getting defensive on this topic. But I don't know. I feel like if you are a CEO of a major tech company, like, you have to have your wits about you. Like, it's not worth becoming defensive over such a serious topic like this. And I feel like there's always work to be done in this space. Okay, that finally brings us to Lauren's interview. Thanks to Blackbird, Lauren sat down with Smriti Bangera, the founder and director of Chloris Labs.
Welcome, Smitty, to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm so excited to chat with you about what you're building, what you've been doing. So, as an intro, tell us about yourself and about what you're building, Chloris Labs.
So about me, I'm an engineer by training. So we're building Chloris with the intent of closing the diagnostic gap in women's health. On average, it takes, not average, median, it takes 4 years to get diagnosed with a chronic illness. And it's as common as 1 in 2 women in Australia, and that scales globally as well. So we want to close that gap as well as improve the care process after diagnosis. So that's the intention of Chloris.
Wow, I love that. So what inspired you to start something like this?
So last year I got diagnosed with a chronic illness. It took me about 5-6 years to get diagnosed. And, I was studying the whole time, working the whole time, and it really, really got in the way of my life, right? And then after I did get diagnosed, it was like a sigh of relief that, it is something, I didn't make it up. I'm not like just a hypochondriac. But it was also like, this is my whole life now. That's what it felt like. And it shouldn't feel that way. Mm-hmm. So I want to hopefully change that for other women going through it and make that process faster, because 6 years is a long time. It's a big part of your life. Even 4 years it's a big chunk of your life, right? Especially when you're young, it can feel like your world is kind of coming down on you.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Did you come up with this idea then after your diagnosis? Was it something you were thinking about while you were like studying? Take me through that process.
Yeah, so I got diagnosed last year and I continued working full time because I was like, I'm just going to get on with it. But then I started asking more questions and looking for community because I felt like I was kind of alone in this process. And I realized everyone around me had a chronic illness, like most women in my life had a chronic illness. And so I started talking to my GP, my endocrinologist, and I was like, why do you think it took so long? And like, why do you think it takes so long for so many people? Like, why is it so hard? And they told me like a few different things. There was like, there's an education gap. Like, most doctors aren't taught about women's health specifically unless they're like electively taking it on. So that baseline of women's health doesn't really exist in our, medical education system. And it's also, doctors are under so much pressure. When you think about it, you go to your GP, it's your first point of contact, and they're only available for 15, 20 minutes at a time, and they're seeing like hundreds of patients over a course of a week. So the amount of pressure on them it's huge. And they're doing their best they can, right, to specialize their care for each and every single patient and take care of them in the most pressing way in that appointment. So it's a lot of pressure on them. There's a lack of education. The guidelines are ever evolving. The literature is ever evolving. And like in the women's health space, because it's so poorly researched and there's a big push for research, it's changing, like what we know about women's health, like what are the root causes, what causes different things to happen, what makes things worse, what makes things better. And it's pretty hard to keep up with that. One, if you have a chronic illness itself, like just focusing on one chronic illness and what makes that better or worse is a mountain of a task in itself. But imagine like taking care of like hundreds of people with various chronic illnesses and complex conditions. So we want to make that process simpler for them.
So tell me how you guys are doing that, or how you plan to do that.
Yeah. So how we're doing that is we've created a connected system. So we have one part for the woman. So we have an app that allows them to bring everything together. Like they can put down what they're feeling, what's going on, what their family history is, what other people might be telling them, like, the TikTok influencers that are telling them like, oh, you have this, or like, take this to make you feel better about this. Like a safe space for them to check what's going on, but also keep everything in one place that supports their GP. So that's the GP side of it, where we're building a tool that integrates into their existing systems that will bring together all that information about their patient, because there's so much information, right? And also give them relevant insight into that patient, like what tests to order, what next steps might be relevant for this patient, any missed signs, relevant literature and the updated guidelines of what is best practice at the moment, stuff like that. So we have that connected system. And after the woman has been diagnosed with something, it supports both the patient and the clinician to follow through on that care plan, to understand what's helping, what's improving their day-to-day life versus what's making it harder. Like sometimes you end up with like 5 different supplements you need to take. Like I at one point needed to take vitamin D, calcium, iron, B12, magnesium, as well as like my normal medication. And my endocrinologist was like, this is a lot of medication or just supplements to take in one day. Like, let's see if we can compound them. So we switched into taking like a once a week vitamin D. We switched into like maybe an iron infusion, a B12 infusion. So there's different things that can be helped with once you know the pressures and what's helping and what's difficult.
How has this been received by the medical community? Is this something that you are bringing to physicians and teaching them about?
Yes. So it actually started with just the diagnostic support for GPs, because that's where the big pain points are. Like, that's where they're under a lot of pressure, and it felt like that's where we could make the most impact. And it is quite well received. They're quite involved in the process. Like, we didn't design it before talking to any GPs, obviously. We spent a lot of time interviewing different GPs, asking their different pain points, what their day looks like, what their different patients are like, what they struggle with patients, what does work. We spoke to like a variety of different GPs in like high socioeconomic areas, GPs in lower socioeconomic areas, and it really makes a difference, like the kind of information that comes through those channels. They're quite interested, they're quite involved, and I think it's being well received. It's just they're a very, very busy bunch of people, right?
Of course.
Yeah, so we try to spend most of our time understanding how we can best help them and make their lives a bit easier.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then secondarily, we created the app more so out of like a lot of demand. Like, a lot of women would come up to us being like, this is amazing. Like, what you're doing, I really need this. And they're like, how can I help? And like, what can I do to take more control of it? And we were like, oh, maybe we can help you in some way that can like channel your information through, because it is a very disconnected system that we have, right? Like, just one solution or the other won't fix it. So we need to connect all these different points of contact and care, because we are quite lucky in Australia that we have a fantastic public healthcare system, but it's under incredible amounts of pressure. And so we need to work towards easing that and connecting the people involved, because, fear-mongering isn't going to get us anywhere, right?
And women's health, as I'm sure you are well aware of, is so under-researched. I'm sure it's underfunded as well. So this feels like a really massive step. I actually cannot believe that a system like this does not exist yet.
Yeah. That's a big amount of feedback we get. They're like, oh, this is perfect. Like, why doesn't it already exist? And that's exactly what we're working on, right? Like, we want to work with authorities to better improve the systems and inform policy and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so tell me about the structure of your company. If you have partners, investors, co-founders, what your team looks like.
So we only started about 6 months ago.
Okay, love that. Early stages.
Yeah, early stages. We entered the Peter Farrell Cup earlier this year through UNSW. My co-founder is a UNSW master's student, so that's how we kind of got involved in that. And it really just started as like an idea I had in my bedroom. Like, I was just coding. I was coding away in her dorm room. And I was like, oh, what do you think of this? Like, do you think it would help you? Do you think this might help someone else? And they're like, yeah, this is sick. Like, it's crazy how this is actually working, because the big problem in like diagnostic space is that it's highly inaccurate. Like, it hallucinates a lot. Like, it can give a lot of misinformation. So it's really important that it's heavily regulated, right? And it's not at this point. So we'd like to improve that space. And we don't want to replace doctors. Like, we need to enhance their abilities and enhance their capacities so that they're able to help more people. So it really just started just me in her bedroom, like coding away just for a bit of fun. And like, I tested it out as I put in all my like medical history and that kind of stuff, and it came out right. And I have a fairly rare condition, so I was very surprised. And I was like, oh, I wonder if this is scalable. Like, I wonder if this would work for more people, if we got more information, if it would get better and, have some impact. So that's how it started. And then we gave like a little, we went to like an information session for PFC, and the program manager was like, okay, get on the stage and like give a quick 1-minute pitch. And I'm not a public speaker. Like, I kind of hate that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I'd much rather have a one-on-one conversation and like get to know the person. And I much prefer listening to people.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh shit.
Oh my God.
And then I got in there and I was like, have you ever faced this problem? Like, what if we did this? Like, how would you feel about that? And like, it was well received. Like, all the women in the room were like, this is fantastic. Like, the men were a little bit confused, but they were like, okay, yeah. And it was well received. And they're like, yeah, you should absolutely like go ahead with this. And we went into Peter Farrell Cup, and then there's a round where you have to like do a quick 1-minute pitch to get a mentor. And we did that, and we didn't get assigned a mentor. So we reached out to someone else in the UNSW entrepreneurship space, and we were like, can you help us find a mentor? Because we didn't get assigned one. So we just kept going. We just kept asking for help. And we got assigned like incredible Dr. Joseph Parr. He's absolute legend, honestly. I could talk about him for probably an hour about how much he's helped us out. Because like even though he's not a woman, like he's been really instrumental in connecting us with the right people, pointing us in the right direction, helping us understand the regulation and really like tap into the medical space rather than, you know, just wellness or just, you know, exercise, that kind of stuff. And we got connected with him, and then we got connected to our other mentor, which is Dr. Denson CEO. And those are our two official advisors in the medical space. And then how it actually started was I reached out to a researcher based in Bond University that was doing research on a specific condition on quality of life. And I was like, hey, can I help out? Like, is there anything I can do? These are my skills. I'm probably more of a tech bro than a scientist, but like, you know, is there anything I can do? Like, I'll build you a dashboard.
Yeah.
Should I do a PhD? Like, I don't know how to help, but I want to help.
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, there's like all these technical issues. And that's how we kind of initially found the tech gap. Yeah. So that's kind of our board. We're not looking for investors at the moment, but happy to chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you are well equipped.
I hope so. I mean, there's much more. Like we want to create like an official medical board. So we have a sounding board of understanding what's happening on the ground. And secondarily, we want like a security board, because a huge problem in healthcare is security, right? And we don't talk about that enough.
What's been a highlight for you so far?
I think about 2 months ago now, we won 2 Dean Awards at the Peter Farrell Cup, which was quite monumental. Like I was not expecting it at all, to be honest. We won the Dean of Medicine and Health and the Dean of Science Awards, which was really incredible. Like we've been able to have so many conversations since because of those awards and the people that, you know, were able to listen to what we were trying to share. So that's been a big highlight.
And do you have any advice for aspiring female founders?
I think find something that keeps you awake at night. Like that's something that really, really bothers you, like something you really want to change. And then find a way to change it, because you have so much power. Like the determination that I've seen women have is unlike no other. Not to discount men, but the determination that it goes into like going on that uphill battle is something else.
Yeah, we can stick it out.
Yeah, you can stick it out. Like if you can get through like so much period pain. And, like, all this stuff that just happens because you're a woman.
Yeah.
You can definitely build a business and definitely build a robust one. So don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it.
And I also love what you said about find something that keeps you up at night, because that's actually such... I say something similar about like building Centennial. Is I always say, like, when people say like, how did you know you were ready? I'm like, I literally couldn't stop thinking about it. Like it's all I thought about. I mean, it's still all I think about, but you know, like especially before I launched, I'm like, this is all I thought about for months and months and months and months until finally my husband was like, just go do it. Like, come on. And it was like, I couldn't not do it. Like I couldn't not try it.
Exactly. Like it's something, it has to be something that keeps you up and something you want to do all the time, because that is what it is, right? You kind of have to do it all the time, otherwise you're not going to go very far.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so tell us what's next for Chloris Labs.
We're about to start testing.
Okay.
So if anyone wants to sign up, if you have a chronic illness, we're the people for you. We're about to start testing, that kind of stuff. So I think that's quite exciting for me. It's a bit boring. It's just a lot of like finding bugs and that kind of stuff. But it's so important, because when you look at a larger scale, like you don't want that to happen on like
of course
hundreds of thousands of
course.
people. So we want to get that ironed out and really see how we can best support people with chronic illness.
And then long term, what do you see the vision for your brand?
That's such a hard question. I've been recently telling people I don't want to think about 5 to 10 years from now, because as long as I'm doing something I care about that's helping other people, I'll be happy. But for Chloris in particular, like I think there's some conversation that some people are like, oh, you could sell and exit and you could be an exited founder, which, you know, would be very cool. Or you can go another pathway. But I think in 5 years, we'd like to be the standard for chronic care support, whether that means, you know, just through the diagnostic tool. We want to see the impact, that change. We want to see that we close down that gap a little bit more, people getting referred in a more timely manner, people getting tested in a more timely manner, people following through on their care plan, because I am notorious for not following through on my care plan, because it seems like a mountain of work. So we really want to close that gap that happens in those settings.
There's probably so much opportunity for community building as well.
Yes, we really want to focus on community building. Perhaps we should start event planning and like get women together, do like a chronic friendly Pilates class
my
or something like that, or
God.
like puppy yoga. I don't know.
Yeah.
That would be so fun. Like, I'd love to do that. I used to do a bit of event planning at uni, so that might be fun to get into.
Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Oh, well, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. What you're doing is so impactful. It's going to be amazing. And I'm so excited to continue watching your journey.
Thank you so much.
Well, that is everything from Mini Tech Scroll today. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. I also really hope nothing super dramatic broke overnight because obviously I didn't cover it. But Lauren will speak to you guys tomorrow and I will see you next week. Thanks for listening. Bye.